Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. We have a lot more freedom these days to ditch our masks in public. And for some people, that's great news.
I'm celebrating today. This is a celebration, but trust me, it beats back on when I go to the grocery store.
Of course, there are caveats. When and where you wear a mask is a big decision. We'll get some perspective from KUOW reporter Eilis O'Neill in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. City Attorney Ann Davison has a plan to deal with repeat offenders. Davison says just 118 people have racked up more than 2,400 cases over the last 5 years for things like theft, trespassing, and assault. She's promising to work with SPD and county prosecutors to, quote, disrupt the cycle of crime by prioritizing what she's calling high utilizers of the criminal justice system. The plan also calls for support from behavioral health and substance abuse providers. Still no movement on the city's ongoing concrete strike. On Monday, the union made what it called a good faith gesture by saying it agreed to return workers to 3 Seattle companies without an agreement. That let critical construction projects around the city, like the West Seattle Bridge, continue. Yesterday, though, the 4 companies responded, calling for a complete end to the strike and pointing to their last offer. And did we all just spring forward for the last time? Yesterday, the U.S. Senate unanimously passed the Sunshine Protection Act. It would put the country on permanent daylight saving time starting next year, as in goodbye standard time. There's a lot of support for the idea, but a UW biology professor tells King 5 that the artificially late summer sunsets and early morning winter sun could be bad for our health. And this podcast host agrees.
Por todos los miembros de la comunidad de la Sagrada Familia, para que se acerquen a los que sienten aislados o solos, roguemos al Señor. Por todos nuestros
This weekend I went to a bilingual mass at the Holy Family Catholic Church in White Center. It was packed. It was standing room only, people lining the aisles, people in the vestibule, tons of families. And of the hundreds of people there, maybe only a half dozen weren't wearing a mask. Holy Family's community was hit pretty hard by the pandemic. Lots of parishioners got COVID, even the priest got COVID. I wondered if this was why so many people were masking, but when I asked people about that after the service, that's not what they said. One person I talked to is Mite. She told me she's keeping her mask on for now because it makes other people comfortable.
Que algunas personas se sienten con más confianza usándola y otros sin confianza y ahorita no sabemos dónde vamos a encontrar los lugares que van a tener el cubrebocas. Cuando llegue a un lugar lo van a estar usando o no lo van a estar usando y si no me preparo no voy a traer cubrebocas y me voy a sentir entonces incómoda de no estar preparada. Entonces es la única forma de estar preparado es usarla y si ya nadie la está usando y ya vemos que nadie lo usa en ninguna parte, pues ya no usarla, pero va a haber muchos lugares que todavía tienen preferencia.
I talked to Isaac Murillo too. He's also still masking.
Es mejor estar seguros que y luego arrepentirnos. De todos modos ya la teníamos usando, entonces ¿por qué no un poquito más, verdad?
That was my colleague, KUOW reporter Eilis O'Neill. She's been out talking to people about King County's mask mandate going away. It's been 4 days now since the great unmasking, and it's opening up a lot of conversations and decisions around masks. I asked Eilis to review for me why this is happening now.
Well, the CDC changed their guidance and said that low-risk counties, what they're calling low risk, and they changed exactly how they do their risk assessment, that a mask mandate is not necessary there. And taking his cue from the CDC, Governor Inslee decided to end Washington State's mask mandate. It is important to remember that the CDC's risk categories aren't about individual risk. It's not about, are you not going to get COVID? You can definitely still get COVID in these counties that the CDC is calling low risk. What is low risk about the counties is that the health system isn't in any danger of collapse. So it's focusing on the health system and not on individuals.
Okay, but what are the case counts looking like right now in Seattle?
We're looking at fewer than 80 new COVID cases per day and less than 1 new hospitalization per day. And that's obviously way, way down from where we were at the peak of Omicron. That said, basic science tells us that if people take their masks off in gyms, in churches, in other public indoor spaces, cases are going to go back up.
Okay, this is interesting that cases are pretty low, but as you say, taking masks off will have an impact on that. Another thing that's gone away is King County's vaccine mandate. I wonder if this is also playing a role in people's decision making, because you can see if the person next to you is wearing a mask, but you don't necessarily know if they're vaccinated.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the business, because it's still the business's prerogative to check vaccine cards if they want to. And so one place I went to this weekend was Columbia City Fitness in South Seattle. And the owner there said he has now an 100% vaccination rate across members, and he's letting people work out unmasked as they choose. One of the people I spoke to at the gym was Rick Dupree. He's a friend of the owner and teaches a class there.
I'm in that high-risk age bracket, and so it's really important for me to be protected. You know, I have friends, unfortunately, that have passed from COVID, and people that are not that old, and then younger people. And so, I'm taking it seriously. What makes me feel comfortable is that the gym here makes sure that everyone has to be vaccinated. So that's really important for me, because if that was not a mandate, I wouldn't be here. And we've been leading this class, doing this class for the last 4 or 5 months with a mask on. And so to be able to do it today without the mask and to breathe is really a blessing. It's really nice.
It's also a lot harder on the treadmill, Eilis, to run with a mask on. So understandable that people in the gym would want to take those masks off. Of course, we will not become a mask-free society overnight. That's obvious. A lot of people are still wearing them. I want to hear more about how people you talk to are navigating this decision for themselves.
One thing I thought was interesting was that people are so largely taking their cues from others that if a community decides together that it is safe enough that they are willing to all be vaccinated and then all take their masks off, then everyone at the gym was not wearing a mask. And some people came in wearing a mask, saw that no one else was wearing a mask, and would take it off. At Holy Family, the opposite kind of peer pressure, social pressure was happening. So it seems that people are thinking through risk and things like that, but people are also taking their cues from each other.
And of course, now that masking is mostly a choice for people, that decision to mask is right on your face, right? And people can see exactly what decision you have made around this. And I wonder if there's any tension that you've observed. I know that when I was in a store wearing a mask where it was predominantly an unmasked crowd, I felt that.
Yeah, when I was at the gym in Columbia City, I kept my mask on because I wasn't working out. I was working. I was standing there with a microphone. It seemed easy to keep my mask on. And I definitely felt a little bit awkward to me, where I was like, it's fine that you have your mask off. I am going to keep my mask on. I'm not trying to make a statement in any kind of way. Similarly, I was out interviewing people at a grocery store parking lot near SeaTac last week, and I was wearing my mask, and some people who were really excited about unmasking did not want to talk to me about it, because I think they thought that I, as a person who was wearing a mask, wouldn't understand their point of view or wouldn't fairly represent it. And so I do think there is this belief that wearing a mask is a statement. Even if you don't mean it to be a statement, it can be perceived as a statement.
Yeah, certainly after all the country's been through fighting over masks. You know, we have already been through this. The mask mandate went away last summer, then Delta happened and we got burned. It is interesting to see how people are embracing tearing off their masks. And I wonder if there's any professional opinions about whether or not we're just bad at assessing risk, or is the risk actually lower now?
I think it's hard to say whether the risk is actually lower now. I I think one thing happened last summer is that people initially thought that with the vaccine, there wasn't a possibility they'd get COVID. And then with Delta, they realized, oh, I actually could get a breakthrough case. And they had to kind of reassess accordingly. And now with Omicron and beyond, we know that it is possible to be vaccinated, boosted, and still get COVID. And so what people are doing is deciding, given that fact, how do I want to move forward? Am I ready to go unmasked into certain situations? Am I ready to go visit my family or go on a trip? I think people's risk assessments are just unfolding differently now than they did during Delta, when people kind of thought they could let their guard off entirely and there was no risk. People understand now that there's going to be risk involved in taking your mask off and going out and socializing and seeing people.
Yeah, Eilis, we are all just taking it day by day. KUOW reporter Eilis O'Neill, thank you so much for sharing your reporting. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Clare McGrane produced today's show. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow. Seriously. Standard time. It's standard for a reason, people. Standard. It's the standard.